The air was heavy with judgment before I even crossed the threshold. Can you believe they didn't even wait for the lawyer to speak? She will get nothing. Dad hated her. My sister Karen spat out the second I walked into the room. No hello, no glance my way, just those cruel, cutting words, loud enough to bounce off the walls like she wanted them to sear into everyone's minds. Oh, how they stung. It felt like a punch square in my chest, stealing my breath. My hand tightened around my son Eli's small one. His tiny fingers, warm yet trembling, curled back around mine, anchoring me in that hostile space. I forced a shaky smile down at him, so thin it barely held, but he saw through it. Doesn't he always? That wise boy of mine knew the truth behind my mask. I hadn't even found a chair yet, but their message was unmistakable. I wasn't welcome. I wasn't family. To them, I was just a loose end they couldn't wait to snip away. Why did I even step into this lion's den? Karen sat at the head of the table, poised like royalty in her crisp gray pantsuit. Her dark hair scraped into that tight bun she wore when she needed to feel above everyone else. That sharp red lipstick? It was her war paint, wasn't it? Classic Karen, ready for a battle I hadn't even known I'd stumbled into. Then came the voice that twisted my stomach, Uncle Rick, Dad's older brother, with his dry, mocking laugh. He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head, that smug smirk oozing across his face like spilled oil. Even her kid knows she's worthless, he muttered, nodding at Eli like he was some object. Not my precious boy. Can you imagine saying that about a child? Eli's eyes dropped to the floor, and my heart cracked deeper, each word carving another wound. Around the room, heads nodded in agreement. Cousins, old neighbors, family friends I hadn't seen in years, all of them having chosen their side long ago, and it wasn't mine. I swallowed hard, my throat rough as sandpaper, scraping with every breath. The air was thick, stale with the scent of dust, creaking leather chairs, and that overpowering, sickly sweet perfume Karen must have drenched herself in. My pulse thundered in my ears, loud, hot, utterly humiliating. How was I supposed to endure this? I led Eli to the farthest chair at the end of that long, intimidating mahogany table. As far from their venom as I could get, the chair groaned as I sat, mirroring the weight in my chest. Eli climbed up beside me, his little legs swinging above the floor, his hands folded in his lap like he was trying to vanish. Oh, my sweet boy, why did I bring you into this storm? Karen's head turned slowly, her eyes locking onto mine, and she smiled, a cold, venomous curve of her lips, dripping with pity that felt like poison. You know this is pointless, right? She said, her voice smooth as ice, slicing just as deep. Dad rewrote the will, cut you out completely, said you were dead to him. Dead to him? Those words echoed in my mind, heavy, suffocating, crushing. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My tongue felt like a stone, useless in my mouth. I nodded faintly, as if I understood, but inside I was screaming, why am I here? Was I foolish to hope for something, a note, a word, a single sign that Dad remembered me? Something to make this ache make sense? Instead, I was trapped in the one place I swore I'd never return to, surrounded by people who'd buried me in their hearts long before they laid my father to rest. I was moments from standing, from grabbing Eli and fleeing before they tore into the estate like vultures. When the door creaked open, Mr. Day, Connor, Dad's lawyer, stepped in, clutching a thick folder under his arm. He looked unchanged, neatly pressed suit, tired eyes, a face that gave nothing away. The room fell silent, didn't it? Everyone straightened, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. This was it, the moment of truth. I braced myself for the final blow. The humiliation I'd known was coming. I came expecting nothing, and I'd leave with exactly that, or so I thought. Oh, how wrong I was. What no one in that room knew, not Karen, not Rick, not even me, was that my son, my brave little Eli, carried a secret, and with 7 simple words, he'd turn their world upside down. You forgot the video he recorded. Can you feel the weight of that moment? It had been 8 years since I'd stood in a room like this with my so-called family. 8 long years since I packed up a life they claimed I didn't deserve, took Eli barely 2 years old, and walked away without looking back. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. Every talk with my father, Charles, ended in silence or shouting matches that left me hollow. Every family gathering was like walking barefoot across broken glass, forcing a smile for the sake of appearances. But now, here I was, back in a room that reeked of cigar smoke and old, festering anger. How did I let myself return to this place? The irony burned. I didn't even know I was invited to the will reading. The envelope arrived 3 days after Dad's funeral, no note. Just a date, time, and address in Connor's crisp, formal handwriting. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if it was a mistake. Was it meant for Karen? Or worse, was it some cruel final jab? But Eli, my wise little boy, insisted we go. He looked at me with those wide, soft eyes, his voice so quiet, yet so sure. "We should go, Mom," he said. "Maybe there's something you need to hear." How does a 10-year-old carry such wisdom? Sometimes, I swear he sees the world clearer than any adult ever could. So, we came. I dug out the plain black dress I hadn't worn since Mom's funeral, its fabric heavy with memories. Eli picked out a little button-up shirt, so proud of his choice. I braided his hair that morning, my hands trembling with nerves, and he grinned up at me, saying, "You look beautiful, Mom." Did he know I hadn't slept? That I was terrified to face the people who treated me like a ghost for nearly a decade? I knew their story about me. Karen, the golden daughter, stayed, cared for Dad, made sure the world saw her devotion. She spun her tale so often it became gospel. Julia abandoned the family. Julia couldn't handle real life. Julia ran away, but they never asked why I left. Did they care? Did they know Dad stopped speaking to me when I refused to stay in a marriage that was tearing me apart? That when I showed up on his porch, Eli in my arms, a suitcase at my feet, he shut the door without a word? The man who was supposed to shield me from the world became another wall I had to climb. Uncle Rick was no better, echoing Dad's bitterness like a loyal shadow. Family doesn't quit. Blood is loyalty. Don't come back crying. And Karen? She soaked it all in, twisting their words into a weapon she wielded with precision. So, I stopped fighting. I built a quiet life for Eli and me, a small world filled with peace, love, and laughter, even if we didn't have much else. But deep down, buried under the years, I clung to a fragile hope, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, Dad had seen something, regretted something, left something for me. Was that why I opened that envelope? Why I dragged myself here? But sitting in that room, surrounded by their cold eyes and smug smiles, I felt like a fool for daring to hope. Why did I think this time would be different? Eli hadn't spoken. Since we sat down, he sat so still, hands folded in his lap, his eyes scanning every face like he was memorizing their expressions. His calm unnerved me. Was he waiting for something? Then, Mr. Starr, Connor cleared his throat and opened his folder. I leaned back, whispering to myself, "Just get through this. Don't let them see you crack." But Eli? Oh, he was holding on to something bigger than my grief. Something that would prove he was the only one in that room who truly heard my father's heart. Connor cleared his throat again. That lawyer's trick to command attention without asking for it. He adjusted his glasses, flipped open the folder, and started reading the will like it was just another day at the office. I barely caught the first few lines: dry legal jargon, estate definitions, executor nonsense. My mind was elsewhere, spinning with what I knew was coming. He wouldn't say my name, would he? I was certain of it. Yet every time he paused to turn a page, I held my breath, my heart foolishly hoping for a miracle. Maybe, just maybe, the next words would change everything. Could Dad surprise me, even now? But no, it was all the usual suspects, wasn't it? The will unfolded, like a script I'd seen coming from miles away. To my daughter Karen, I leave the primary residence and all its contents. Karen's face stayed as still as stone, but oh, could I feel her smug satisfaction wafting across the table like a cloud of her overpowering perfume. She shot a sideways glance at her husband, Neil, who gave her that smug little nod, like they were already picking out new curtains for Dad's house. Can you imagine their arrogance? To my brother Rick, the lake property, and all remaining shares in the family business. Rick leaned back even further in his chair, arms folded, chin tilted up like some king lording over his freshly claimed empire. I watched him slide that cigar back between his teeth, biting down with a grin that screamed victory. Had he already won in his mind? To Paul, my nephew, the vintage car collection. Paul, that cousin who at 9 years old locked me out of my own room just to laugh at my tears. That Paul? Really, Dad? My cheek stung where I bit it hard, fighting to keep my face from crumpling. The tears burned behind my eyes, hot and sharp, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not now. Still, there was no mention of me, not a word, not a footnote. Was I truly invisible to him? Then came the blow I'd been dreading, the one that felt like a door slamming shut forever. And as previously declared, my daughter Julia will not receive a portion of this estate. There it was, so simple, so final, like the end of a story I was never meant to be part of. My chest ached as if I'd been struck, the air knocked out of me. Eli's small fingers slipped into mine under the table, a quiet lifeline. I hadn't even noticed my hands were clenched tight in my lap, knuckles white with tension. His touch pulled me back, anchored me before I could drift into the abyss of my own pain. Oh, my sweet boy, how did you know I needed you? I could feel my heartbeat pounding behind my eyes, my skin burning with shame and grief. And then the whispers started low, cruel, deliberate. Karen let out the softest scoff, barely audible, but sharp as a blade. Told you, she muttered to Neil, her voice dripping with triumph. Uncle Rick shook his head, his expression saying, "It was all so predictable. Takes a certain kind of person to walk away from her own father," he said, louder than necessary. Ensuring I heard every word. How could he be so heartless? The other's cousins, so-called family friends, stayed silent, but their quiet was louder than any shout, heavy with judgment. I stared down at the wood grain on the table, its swirling lines twisting like a maze, almost hypnotic. It was easier to lose myself in those patterns than to face their accusing eyes. My own voice echoed in my head, flat and hollow. Why did I come? Why did I think he'd remember me? Was I just chasing a ghost? But then, everything shifted. Eli moved, letting go of my hand and sitting up straighter, his small frame radiating a quiet strength I hadn't noticed before. I felt the change in the air before I saw it, like a storm gathering. His voice, soft but steady as a blade, cut through the room's tension. "You forgot the video he recorded." The world stopped. Can you imagine the silence that followed? Karen blinked, her composure cracking. Rick's head snapped toward Eli, his smirk gone. Mr. Connor paused, his pen frozen above the page. Caught off guard, I turned to Eli, my mind spinning with confusion. What video? I whispered, my voice barely a breath. But Eli wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed straight ahead. Calm, certain, unshakable. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small white envelope, slightly crumpled but sealed tight. My name was scrawled on the front, but below it, in Dad's unmistakable, sharp, all-caps handwriting, were the words, "For the lawyer, only if it gets ugly." What was this? I stared at that envelope in Eli's hands, like it was glowing with some dangerous energy. He held it so calmly, as if it were just a piece of paper. But to me, it felt like the most perilous object in the room. My eyes locked on Dad's handwriting, bold, unmistakable. A ghost from the past, staring back at me. For the lawyer. Only if it gets ugly. Well, hadn't it gotten ugly? The room was practically dripping with venom. I could barely find my voice, my throat tight with shock. Eli, where did you get that? I asked, my words trembling. He looked up at me, his expression soft but resolute, like he'd been carrying this secret for ages. Grandpa gave it to me a while ago, he said. He told me to keep it safe. My heart stumbled, skipping a beat. He gave it to you? I echoed, disbelief flooding me. He nodded, his voice steady. The day we visited him, just me and him. You were at work. I blinked hard, trying to pull that memory into focus, my mind racing to make sense of it. I remembered that day, Eli had asked to go with our neighbor to drop something off at Dad's house. It was the first time I'd let him go without me, trusting he'd be fine for a quick errand. I had no idea they'd even spoken, let alone shared something so significant. How could I have missed this? Now, missed? Connor reached across the table, his voice gentle but firm. May I? He asked, and Eli handed over the envelope without a flicker of hesitation, as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. The entire room leaned in, breathless, hanging on the edge of something unknown. Karen squinted, her face twisting like she couldn't process what was happening. Rick shifted in his seat, his usual slouch gone, replaced by a tense alertness. For once, nobody dared speak. Was this real? The envelope tore open with a soft, deliberate rip, the sound echoing in the silent room. Inside was a USB drive, small, black, unremarkable, but my pulse surged like it was a live grenade. Connor's brow furrowed as he pulled out a note. Another page covered in Dad's familiar handwriting. His eyes scanned it, and for the first time since he'd walked in, I saw his calm crack, just a fraction, a fleeting shadow crossing his face. He didn't speak right away. He just nodded slowly, as if some unspoken truth had been confirmed. What was on that note? What had Dad done? Everyone, Connor said, his voice quieter now, heavy with gravity. There is a video message from Charles Thomas, recorded before the final version of this will. It was sealed with instructions to be played only if this situation became contentious. His eyes flicked to Karen, then Rick, and they both squirmed in their chairs, their confidence unraveling. Karen scoffed, her voice sharp with disbelief. This is ridiculous. He didn't say anything about a video. Uncle Rick leaned forward, his tone hard, almost accusing. We don't know what's even on that thing. Could be fake. Connor raised a hand, silencing them with calm authority. It's timestamp authenticated, he said. I recognize the handwriting and signature, and per his instructions, I'm legally bound to play it. Oh, the tension in that moment, could you feel it? He plugged the USB into a sleek black laptop on the desk beside him. The screen flickered to life, a logo fading into a black frame with one word, play. The air in the room shifted, growing thick, almost suffocating. No one spoke. No one moved. My heart pounded in my fingertips as I gripped the arms of my chair, clinging to them like they might keep me grounded. My breathing was shallow, shaky, barely there. Why would Dad leave a video? Why Eli? What could he possibly want to say now? After all these years of silence, Eli sat still, his eyes locked on the screen, calm as ever, like he already knew what was coming. How could he be so sure? Karen's face had gone pale, her lips pressed into a tight, bloodless line. Rick's cigar hung forgotten in his hand. The arrogance drained from his posture. I wanted to run, to cry, to scream anything, to escape the weight of this moment. But more than anything, I needed to know, what was Dad going to say? Connor pressed the spacebar, and the screen went black for half a second, a heartbeat of suspense, before flickering to life, and there he was, my father, older, thinner, sitting at his worn oak desk, wearing the navy sweater I'd bought for his last birthday, the one I never knew he'd kept, let alone worn. His hands were folded, his expression not cold, not distant, but tired human in a way I hadn't seen in years. He looked straight into the camera, and his first words stole the air from my lungs. "Hi, Julia." I didn't breathe, not when the screen lit up, not when I saw his weathered face, not when those two words, soft and deliberate, reached me. He looked older than I remembered, his skin thinner, his once proud shoulders softened by time, but it was still him, Charles Thomas, my father, sitting at that familiar desk with the antique globe behind him, just like when I was a kid dreaming of his approval. Only this time, his eyes weren't stern or far away. They were warm, almost vulnerable. Was this really happening? "If you're watching this," he continued, his voice steady but heavy, "I'm gone, and I'm guessing things didn't go well at the reading." His hands stayed clasped in front of him, his fingers twitching slightly, a nervous habit I'd inherited. A small piece of him I carried without realizing. "I didn't expect peace between you and the family. I know what they think of you. Hell, I know what I said about you." He looked down, swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing, and I was wrong. Oh, those words, could they be real? My breath caught, my nails digging into the chair's arms as I leaned forward, hanging on every syllable. What was he about to say? My breath caught in my throat, a sharp gasp that felt like it might never let go. My nails dug into the armrest of my chair, the wood biting back as I clung to it for dear life. Eli glanced up at me, his soft eyes searching mine, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the screen. Could I even blink? I believed what Karen told me. Dad's voice continued, heavy with regret. I believed Rick. I believed that you left because you didn't care. I didn't ask questions. I didn't listen to you. Not once. You tried, and I shut the door in your face, on you and Eli. Oh, how those words stung, reopening wounds I thought had scarred over. I heard Karen shift in her chair, a sharp, uncomfortable rustle, her composure cracking under the weight of Dad's confession. I didn't look at her. How could I? My eyes were glued to the screen, to the man I'd spent years longing to understand. Dad's voice cracked, just barely, a tremor that echoed in my chest. I thought being strong meant being proud, that if you walked away, it was betrayal. But strength is showing up. It's protecting your child. And you did that. You did what I couldn't. His eyes glistened, a sheen of tears catching the light. My own vision blurred, the room swimming as tears welled up. Was this really happening? I met Eli one day when he stopped by. Just the two of us, Dad said, his voice softening with a warmth I hadn't heard in years. That kid, he didn't say much. But when I asked him about you, he just said, "My mom is the safest place in the world." My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a sob that threatened to escape. Eli said that? My heart swelled, aching with love for my boy, who'd carried this moment in his heart. "I lost you, Julia," Dad went on, his voice thick with sorrow. "I see that now. I lost my daughter because I couldn't stop being right long enough to love you the way you needed. But I won't let my last act be pushing you away again." He cleared his throat, his gaze steady as he looked straight into the camera, straight into me, so I changed the will. A collective gasp ripped through the room, sharp and sudden. Someone's chair creaked Rick's. Maybe, his smug confidence crumbling. Karen muttered something under her breath, a low hiss of disbelief, but I couldn't make out the words. How could I hear anything over the sound of my father's voice, resonating in my soul? "I've left the house to you and Eli," he said. "The savings, the retirement fund, it's yours, and a college trust for Eli. I know it doesn't fix what I broke, but I want you to have the peace I couldn't give you when I was alive." He paused, leaning slightly closer to the camera, his eyes piercing through the screen. "And if they're angry, let them be angry. You earned this. You lived through all of it and never stopped being a mother. That's more than I ever managed." "Oh, Dad, how could you say that?" My heart pounded, a lump forming in my throat, so big I could barely breathe. "I'm proud of you, and I love you, Julia," he said, his voice steady but laced with a tenderness I'd never known from him. Always did. I just didn't know how to show it. Those words, could they be real? They wrapped around me like a long-lost embrace, filling cracks I didn't know still bled. And then, just before the video faded to black, he added, so quietly, it felt like a secret just for us. "Take care of my grandson. Tell him thank you." "Thank you, Eli? For what?" "For carrying the truth when no one else would." The screen went dark. No music, no fade. Just a silence so pure it felt holy, like the world had paused to honor the moment. Chairs squeaked around me. Someone sniffed, but I couldn't move. I sat frozen, my hand still pressed over my mouth, tears streaming down my cheeks, warm and unstoppable. Something I didn't even know I'd been carrying, years of pain, blame, and silence lifted, leaving me weightless. He heard me. After all this time, Dad finally heard me. And in that sacred quiet, no one could steal that away. Could anything ever feel this profound? No one spoke when the screen went black. Not Karen, not Rick, not the cousins or family friends who'd once offered polite smiles, while ignoring the weight I bore, even missed. Connor sat still, his hand hovering over the mouse, as if ending the video had frozen time itself. And maybe it had, hadn't it? I don't know how long I sat there, my hand still over my mouth, my cheeks wet with tears. I hadn't felt falling, until Eli's small hand slipped back into mine. He wasn't crying. He just looked up at me with a small, knowing smile, like he'd been waiting all along for the truth to find its voice. "Oh, my brave boy, how did you carry this burden so quietly?" I leaned down and kissed the top of his head, my lips trembling against his soft hair. My heart ached with a tangle of emotions too big for words. Love, relief, grief, all knotted together in a beautiful, painful mess. Across the room, Karen stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the polished floor. A jarring sound that broke the spell. She grabbed her bag with shaking hands, her face pale, and stormed out without a word. Her husband, Neil, trailed behind, his face flushed red, muttering something incoherent under his breath. Did they think they could escape the truth? Rick stayed seated longer, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack, his eyes staring at nothing. When he finally stood, He shot a glance at Connor, like he wanted to argue, to fight, but even he knew it was over. Dad had spoken, hadn't he? His truth was undeniable, a force no one could challenge. One by one, the others slipped away. Some couldn't meet my eyes, their gazes skittering to the floor like they were ashamed. A few offered quiet nods, pity, maybe. Or was it respect? I couldn't tell, and honestly, I didn't care. Soon, it was just the three of us left in that cavernous room, me, Eli, and the echo of Dad's words. Connor gently closed his folder, the soft thud of paper against paper grounding me. He cleared his throat, his voice softer than before, almost reverent. "There will be some paperwork," he said, "but everything's in order." I nodded, my mind still reeling. What could I even say? Words felt too small for this moment. He gave me a small, genuine smile, the kind that carried understanding, and left us alone. The silence that followed was different, wasn't it? It wasn't the heavy, oppressive silence I'd grown used to, the kind that suffocated and accused. This silence was peaceful, whole, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. I looked at Eli, still holding my hand, still gazing at me like I was the strongest person he knew. And maybe, in his eyes, I was, but he was the one who'd saved me, wasn't he? He'd carried that envelope like it was just a piece of paper, not the key to unlocking a truth that rewrote everything. How could someone so young hold so much courage? We stayed a little longer, lingering in that room. Why? Maybe I needed time to breathe, to let the weight of Dad's words settle into my bones. Maybe I wanted to savor the first moment in years where I felt like I belonged, like I wasn't an outsider in my own story. I kept hearing Dad's voice in my head, those three words I never thought I'd hear: "I'm proud of you." They echoed, louder than the years of silence, stronger than the blame I'd carried. I thought about all I'd endured, decades of being erased, of being judged, of being told I wasn't enough. And now, I wasn't erased. I was seen, heard, remembered. Could anything be more powerful? I looked at Eli again, his small hand still in mine, his eyes bright with a wisdom beyond his years. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling with gratitude. He tilted his head. "Curious. For what?" "For being braver than me," I said, tears welling again. "For holding on to something that mattered." He smiled, that quiet, radiant smile that lit up my world. "I just wanted you to hear him," he said. And I had, hadn't I? Not just in the video, but in the shift that followed, in the peace that filled the room once the others had gone. Their anger and judgment no match for the truth. That's the thing about truth, isn't it? It doesn't always come when you want it, slipping through the cracks of your life when you least expect it. But when it arrives, oh, how it changes everything. So no, I didn't walk out of that room broken. Not this time. I walked out holding my son's hand, my father's words still ringing in my chest. A melody of redemption I'd never dared to hope for. I walked out whole, my heart full, my spirit unbroken, and that silence, that beautiful, healing silence, finally meant something. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt pushed aside, misjudged, or like your voice didn't matter, hear this: you are not invisible. Your story matters. And sometimes the truth takes time to surface, but it will find its way to the light. Did this move you? Then please, give this story a like. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Stories like this only reach those who need them most when you help them spread. And if you're craving more real